emergency talks. African presidents race to form one Africa government. Traoré's name dominates as lead candidate for first term. By Takunda Mabika, Southern Africa Breaking News. Tisu Vanhu Vacho. Africa is finally talking to itself and ready to lead the world. Africa. Something just shifted. A few nights ago, while most of the continent slept, a private Zoom meeting was held. But this was no ordinary call. It was a high-level, classified African Union Emergency Summit involving AU Chairperson João Lourenço, AU Commission Chair Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, and 55 heads of state, all debating one thing: how should Africa be governed as one? And more importantly, who should lead first? Our top insider, the fearless and respected Chairman Shadow, gave us this leak straight from the AU inner sanctum. He says the conversation was tense, hopeful, strategic, and above all, real.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Okay, imagine this for a second. A top secret, classified emergency Zoom call. You've got 55 African heads of state on there, and they're tackling this huge question. How do we govern Africa? As one single entity. This isn't science fiction. Our top insider calls himself Chairman Shadow. He just leaked this straight from the AU. And, well, what he revealed is pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. It sounds like a real-time push towards what they're actually calling a One Africa government. So that's what we're going to unpack today in this deep dive. We want to get into the specifics of this ambitious plan for continental unity, because it really seems to be picking up steam. We'll look at the structures they're proposing, some pretty surprising names for the first leader, and what it all could actually mean.
So first things first, who called this meeting? And why now? Why the urgency? Chairman Shadow says it was the AU chairperson, João Lourenço. He's Angola's president. This was during his term, Feb 2025 into 2026. And his opening line on that call apparently was very direct. He said, we are not trying to create a superstate. We are finally creating structure unity with logic brotherhood with rules. Wow, that's quite a statement right out of the gate.
It absolutely is. Bold. And, presenting alongside him was Mahmoud Ali Yusuf. He's the chairperson of the African Union Commission, elected Feb 2025 from Djibouti. And he apparently laid out the actual the institutional blueprint for this unified Africa. We're talking a rotational presidency. Each country gets a year, so a 55-year cycle. And a unified AU parliament. Proposal is for it to be based in South Africa. Also a council of governors, made up of former presidents, meeting monthly. It sounds quite detailed. Was there any discussion mentioned about pushback, or is this blueprint just sort of accepted as the starting point?
That's a really good question. From what Chairman Shadow reported, it sounds like the mood was more urgent resolve, like there was general agreement on the need for some kind of structure like this. It didn't stop there either. The blueprint also mentioned strict term limits, 2 terms, 5 years each for state governors, which means your national president, plus a continental digital ID and a free trade passport, all on the table. The vision, as Shadow put it, was laid out with, powerful clarity. But then came the really juicy part. Okay, who leads first?
Right, and this is where, according to the leak, the conversation took an unexpected turn. Chairman Shadow said the first names mentioned were kind of the predictable ones. They called them the jewels of African democracy. You had South Africa's strong institutions, judiciary, media. Makes sense. Botswana, decades of stability, low corruption. Ghana, peaceful power transitions, people involved civically. And Mauritius, clean governance leading digitally. The ones you'd sort of expect.
Okay, so the usual suspects, the safe bets. But then, Then apparently a West African envoy speaks up, changes the mood, started talking about needing revolutionary leadership, said something like, the people's voice must echo in this hall. Ooh. And that's when the name Ibrahim Traoré was. Well, Shadow said it was dropped like thunder. He's the 36-year-old transitional leader of Burkina Faso. Now, that feels different. A huge contrast to those jewels. Did the leak mention anything about the risks? I mean, putting a figure like that, a revolutionary one, in charge, especially how the world might see it.
That's a crucial point. And yes, Chairman Shadow's report kind of touches on the edges of that. See, the argument for Traoré wasn't about ticking those, standard democratic boxes like the jewels. It was a different kind of legitimacy, something rooted in popular feeling, anti-colonial sentiment. Remember, he took power in 2022. Things were unstable, lots of external influence. What made him stand out, according to Shadow's notes from the meeting, was his clear rejection of colonial dependency. He called for African unity, openly stood with Niger and Mali, forming that new alliance in West Africa. And crucially, he seems to have captured the imagination, maybe the love, of young Africans continent-wide. That signals a real shift. Shadow noted people respect his discipline, his modesty, said he dresses simply, he speaks less, but when he speaks, the room listens. So the implicit challenge isn't about fitting Western benchmarks of democracy. It's about, does his leadership represent this new emerging African identity, this readiness to break from the past?
That completely reframes it. Okay, so whether it's Traoré or someone else, how would this rotating presidency actually work day to day? The idea is simple enough. 55 years, 1 year per country. Everyone gets a shot. But what power does that president actually have?
Yeah, that's key. And based on Yusuf's presentation, the power is strictly limited to continental coordination, not running countries internally. All 55 nations stay sovereign. The analogy used was like the United States, individual states with their own governance, but united. So the One Africa president's job for that year involves hosting the big Continental Union address, chairing all the AU summits that year, launching at least one big Africa-wide innovation program, and overseeing the continental budget. So it's described as, symbolic power, but powerful symbolism. More about setting the tone, the direction, fostering that unity, rather than, making laws for Ghana or Kenya.
Right. Symbolic, but significant.
Yeah.
Still, this is huge, a massive undertaking. Is the AU actually ready for this? Is the plumbing, the infrastructure even there?
Well, according to another source, this one called Protocol Black, an insider in AU security, apparently the digital side of things is quietly being built already. We're talking facial ID systems, Pan-African payment rails, so basically ways to move money instantly across the continent, and encrypted border scanning technology. So yeah, a lot of the groundwork, the tech stuff seems to be underway. Not just talk, but, Protocol Black's assessment. Did it mention the challenge? I mean, rolling this out across 55 diverse countries, logistically, politically, that sounds like a nightmare.
That's a fair point about the hurdles. Chairman Shadow's notes, though, seemed more focused on the fact that it is happening, that quiet progress, rather than detailing every single obstacle.
Yeah.
The emphasis feels like it's on building that forward momentum right now. What about the diplomats? What's the feeling among them?
There's another voice, Mama Pan-Africa, described as a really respected diplomatic advisor, years of experience. And she apparently put it very bluntly, said, people think this is a dream, but it's already happening. African countries are tired of being treated like clients. Now we're becoming partners with each other. I mean, if you connect that thought, it suggests a really deep shift in how Africa sees itself and its place in the world, driven by, just being tired of the old ways.
Okay, let's shift to the money. Economics.
Yeah.
This could be the real game changer, right? This other source, the economist of Addis, apparently one of the policy architects, highlighted Africa's, $24 trillion in untapped mineral wealth just sitting there.
24 trillion. It's an almost unbelievable number. And the core argument is straightforward. Divided economies mean Africa trades at a loss. Exporting raw materials cheap, importing expensive finished goods. But as one block, one unified economy, it potentially becomes the world's most vital supplier and consumer market. The economist of Addis basically said, the poverty ends when the division ends. What he's really getting at there, I think, isn't just pooling resources. It's about creating a whole new economic engine within Africa. You break down those internal trade barriers, you coordinate how you develop resources, not just selling more stuff, you're building value inside the continent, creating jobs, keeping wealth at home. That's how you tackle poverty fundamentally.
Yeah, you can start to picture it. Like the examples given, Zimbabwe's lithium, helping fund AI research in Kenya, Nigeria's oil money, maybe going towards education reform in Mali, Congo's cobalt feeding battery plants down in South Africa. The vision is just, wow, one united supply chain, 1 billion customers, one market. It's almost hard to grasp the scale of that integration. But what about the challenges? Did the economist of Addis mention how you actually coordinate that across 55 countries? infrastructure, different rules.
Oh, absolutely. Coordinating something that massive is, well, it's the core challenge, and the policy architects know it. While the economists of Addis focused on the sheer potential, the blueprint itself seems to suggest that the unified AU Parliament, that Council of Governors, they'd be crucial for harmonizing regulations, standardizing things, making those big cross-border projects actually happen. This kind of unity forces you to build those complex coordination systems because it changes Africa's whole position, from just resources to, integrated development, internal wealth.
So how's the rest of the world taking this sudden serious push for unity? Chairman Shadow's leaks suggest, well, shock, especially Europe and the US. They're apparently shocked by how serious it is. There are even leaked think tank reports floating around Washington saying Africa's no longer waiting for approval.
Yeah, it's definitely shaking up the old narratives. And interestingly, in Beijing, Chairman Shadow's contacts suggest there's a belief the AU could become the most stable political bloc globally within maybe 20 years. And France. Their perspective seems to be shifting too, seeing Africa as less dependent and more diplomatic. What's really fascinating, though, is that Shadow reports this isn't just happening in closed rooms. People are actually talking about it on the streets. Lagos, Harar, Kigali, Addis. That suggests maybe a real groundswell, popular buy-in, which could be why the leaders are moving so fast now.
Okay, so what's the roadmap? What are the actual next steps discussed in these meetings? Chairman Shadow laid out a kind of timeline. First, there's a draft constitution being finalized right now in Addis Ababa. Second, each president takes it back home, reviews it confidentially with their legal teams. Third step, a big constitutional referendum held simultaneously across all AU states. Date, not set yet, TBD.
And then the really critical moves towards leadership. The first vote for the One Africa president nomination that happens inside the new AU Parliament. And the announcement of who that first leader is, estimated within 12 months, like the next year. And yeah, Shadow confirms Ibrahim Traoré's name is still right up there in the top 3, which shows just how concrete and frankly aggressive this timeline is for such a monumental change.
It's important, though, to be clear about the message here. It's not about walling off Africa. Chairperson Yusuf apparently stressed this. He said, we're not rejecting the West. We're inviting the world to meet Africa on equal terms. And this is not a Cold War reborn. This is Africa reborn. And it's not a revolution of war. It's a revolution of systems, minds, and markets. That's a powerful framing.
It really is. And the focus on systems, minds, markets, not conflict, that's compelling. It's about redefining relationships based on equality, mutual respect. That could genuinely reshape how the world works, diplomatically, economically. It's basically Africa saying, we're setting the terms now.
So let's bring it right down to the individual level. What does this mean for you, the listener, whether you're in Africa or connected to it? Well, first off, if this goes through, your country's president becomes effectively a governor of a state within the United States of Africa.
Exactly. And the practical changes for you could be huge. Your passport, suddenly valid across all 55 states. Imagine that ease of travel. You'd potentially have access to continent-wide healthcare systems, trade opportunities, education. Think about it. African students might be able to study for free in any African country. So if you're, say, a farmer in rural Zambia, your produce could find markets way up in Morocco much more easily. If you're a tech coder in Nairobi, your app could launch and reach users down in Dar es Salaam seamlessly. A student in Cape Town. Maybe you attend a Pan-African university program based in Ghana. Access to so much more. It's really about unlocking potential on a continental scale for everyone.
And that brings us to the final point from Chairman Shadow. A voice note he shared, it kind of sums up the driving force behind all this. He said, and I'm quoting him directly here, "The leaders have been afraid for too long, but the people aren't." That's why this is working, because the people are now pulling the leaders forward.
Wow.
This is not theory, this is practice, and it has already begun.
Wow, that idea that it's the people pushing this forward now, that emotional shift, it really underlines that this isn't just some elite project cooked up in Addis. It reflects something deeper, maybe a continent-wide hunger for unity, for self-determination that's finally hitting a boiling point.
So this deep dive has really uncovered an incredibly bold vision taking shape for Africa, and it seems driven as much by the people as by the presidents. Now consider this. If Chairman Shadow's sources, these confidential leaks, are accurate, then maybe within the next 12 months, we could actually see the first president elected not just by one nation, but by all 55. What does it really mean? For Africa, for the world, when an entire continent bursting with resources, with spirit, decides to unite, truly on its own terms. You're watching history unfold right now.